there, but
Welcome everyone to episode 2 of Robinland's podcast, and today we have a very special event where we discuss the legalities of Web3. Now, this event did take place on Twitter Spaces on March 20th, and it was hosted by Vito and Web3 University. And we do have some very special guests today. We have Robinland CEO Scarlett Chen and our legal counsel Fred Lin, and joining us is also Avita founder George Gugnan. Like I mentioned, this event did take place on Twitter Spaces, and if you'd like to catch some of these events live and be able to participate with us, be sure to follow us on Twitter at RobinlandIO. Now please sit back and enjoy the show.
All right, folks, let's start. I think it's time. People have tuned in. We have all the speakers. Derek is here. Super happy to have you all. Let me introduce this space. So GMGAGN everyone, and welcome to this space. Today we're gonna uncover the secrets of legalities in Web3 and the crypto regulations around the world. Answering questions like, do you need to create a company to set up DAO, or can you get paid in crypto going full anon, or how to launch your own token without the risk of having a hard time dealing with the SEC. With me today, a panel of stunning experts, lawyers, CEOs, and tokenomics legends from all around the world, ready to answer your questions. But let me introduce you to Scarlett Chen, CEO at Robinland.io, senior data scientist at Shopify, previously at Google, and PhD in economics. George Gugnan, I hope you have spelled your surname correctly, founder at Karma Investments, Uniter, and Web3 educator. Derek Chang, leading Web3 University and engineer at Alchemy, currently behind the Web3U profile. And Fred Lin, general counsel and lawyer at Robinland.io. I am Vito, your today's host and DevRel at Alchemy, now ready to let our speakers speak for themselves. But first, this space is sponsored and hosted by Web4U, the first Web3 learning platform that will help you going from zero to hero and start your career as a blockchain developer in 2022. We'll ask a number of questions to our speaker to then pull some of you to come and speak on stage and ask the questions you need to answer. That said, let's start from you, Scarlett Chen. Who you are, what do you do, but mostly, what is Robinland.io?
Thanks so much for putting me first. Just now when you were saying we have a panel of lawyers and DGen, I was thinking, well, I'm not a lawyer, so am I the DGen? But definitely not me. So I was a PhD in economics at Stanford, where I studied housing and real estate. And even during my time there, I realized there's a huge amount of inefficiencies in a lot of traditional sectors. Real estate is a great example because a piece of a house is a combination of ownership and investment, which makes people who want to invest, it's just very hard for them to trade things in a liquid way. So I was thinking of how can I create a financial instrument that packs to the house price, but not the underlying consumption, to decouple these two. At that time, it wasn't clear to me what this instrument was about. So after graduation, I went into Google as a data scientist, but came across a crypto group and realized, well, crypto could be this missing piece of the puzzle. And then I dig deeper and realize, well, the relationship or connection is deeper than that. For example, in DeFi nowadays, there's a lot of borrowing and lending done on top of other crypto, which are very volatile. And so you will see institutions like MakerDAO using 200% collateralization rate to back stablecoin to make it stable. But what if we can introduce real assets into DeFi? Then this can help bring orthogonal volatility to bring down the overall volatility of the market and reduce collateralization rate or increase capital utilization rate. So that is the moment I realized, well, I need to do this, or someone else will do it. But with my background and being lucky enough to meet a team of people who are lawyers, crypto experts, and real estate experts, were able to put together Robinland. And what we're trying to do is to use blockchain technology to solve the financing and investment problem in real estate for not only developers, but real estate retail investors, and also DAOs such as Maker that is trying to bridge real asset into their pool. So that's in a nutshell what we're trying to do. And I'll let the official account of Robinland say one sentence, and then I'll stop there.
Hey, this is Grayson from the Robinland Twitter. If you like what you hear today from Robinland, I highly encourage you to check out our link tree in our Robinland Twitter bio for all of our relevant links, such as our community Discord, YouTube, and website. If today's talk leaves you with more questions, then I highly recommend reading our Medium articles that can explain Robinland in more depth. And definitely join our Telegram Discord to interact personally with our team and ask any questions you may have. And that's it for me. Enjoy the rest of the conversation we have set up for today.
I had an amazing chat last week with Scarlett, and she completely blew my mind about collateralization and how everything is working under hood on Robinland. So thank you so much, and thank you, George, for putting me in contact with Scarlett. So, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, for sure. Hi, everyone. I'm George, and I'm right now pivoting my startup. We have started as a tokenization of real estate renovation in the US. That's how we met with Scarlett and also with MakerDAO, also because they are fans of real world assets right now as a collateral for minting DAI. But due to the sanctions, trading wars, and all that stuff, there's a lot of our team members from Ukraine and Russia, both of them. There's a lot of account blocks, and a lot of lawyers don't want to like talk to the teams from these countries, etc., etc. We know that's all nonsense, but that's why we are now pivoting to the from security tokens to utility tokens, and we will be focusing on gamification of education in converting people from Web 2 to Web 3 and from non-tech to junior tech skills. And we have a lot of guys who can gamify it and who educated more than a dozen of thousands of people from non-tech to tech, even employing them after that. So our general mission is to move humanity to prosperity, and we think that providing them with the new skills and bringing them upwards and allowing them to increase their income and get into the new bright community, we will help them much more than with just investing in some speculations or something like that. So yes, right now we're in a pivot stage. But I know a lot about security tokens, and I have made a lot of security offerings, also filed with the SEC, and I know how to structure your token as a utility token to avoid the financial regulation. Thank you.
Welcome, George. It's such a pleasure to have you here. We finally had our space, but everything wouldn't have been possible without Derek and Web for You. So, Derek, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hey everybody, I'm Derek. I've been working on Web3U for the past 3 months or so, and we've seen an incredible outpouring of support from the community. I think there's a lot of enthusiasm around Web3 education, and a lot of enthusiasm around things like this, where we can bring together the community to figure out what we can learn collectively and like leverage the talent that we have throughout Web3 to educate each of us and ourselves about what's going on in the space. So this is a really great series. I'm really excited to have it be kicked off. My background is that I was working at Google up until about 2017 or so, working on real-time translation for real earbuds, Google Pixel earbuds, and other rapid prototyping projects. I took a couple years off to work on music production, and then I joined Alchemy, where I'm currently an engineer and developer advocate. And one of the big pushes that I think we've been trying to do with this is that the vast majority of Web3 developers just recently entered the space. So in 2021, I think about 60 to 65% of all existing developers joined. And so the vast majority of people in the space are brand new. It's going to continue being that way for the next 3 years. And as much as we can, getting on the ground to help people who are learning about Web3 online and through communities such as this is one of the big focuses for what we're trying to build out of this project. So thanks for having me.
The pleasure is all ours, actually. You're the host, so amazing. Before letting Fred introduce himself, I want to thank all the audience that we have here. I see Jacob, I see Angelina, I see Taiwo, I see Abe, Annie, and Onaline, and many others. So if you're enjoying this space and if you're liking what you're hearing, please share it with your network, share it with your friends, grandma, and whoever you think is, relevant. Such a pleasure to have you all here. So, Fred, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Okay. So my name is Fredlin. I'm the general counsel of Robinland. Before I joined Robinland, I'm a lawyer that's working probably whole my career in corporate and financial sectors. I joined I start practicing in the Valley in a fintech company, and then I go to Google doing compliance work, and then I do some of sort of M&As, and then I go into investment sectors and private equity. So I personally handled several Reg A, Reg D filings, and that's the point that Robinland, Scarlett, and Venice contact me saying that explaining the whole bunch of business strategies they have with me, and then I was immediately attracted by the concept and what they're trying to do. And what they're trying to do is a security token offering in the US, and a lot of regulations are borrowed from the security regulations. So they think my experience might provide some benefits to the company, and then I just gladly accepted their offer, and now we're working together to try to make this dream become real. Yeah.
Thank you, Fred. It's a pleasure to have you here once again. As you can notice, we have a panel of amazing speakers. So my suggestion is go and follow all of them. You won't regret it. So let's dig straight into the topic because what's happening in the world is super interesting at the moment. And just a second to remind all of you the rules of a space. So raise your hand if you want to talk. Right, request to speak if you have a question. That's it. So my first question is, how is crypto regulated at the moment in the world, and where the world is heading?
I can speak first because I'm the one that knows the least about any of the topics because I'm not a lawyer in the panel. So I'll take the low-hanging fruits. So I think this is a huge topic that can last, for hours if we discuss, can even be several papers. But then when you talk about sort of how crypto is regulated, there's a lot of different facets. For example, AML is one thing, and then like tax evasion is one thing, stablecoin is one thing, NFT is one thing. I know a lot of things will cover. But then I think one interesting aspect is think from the regulators' point of view. Why would they care? Like, what are some aspects of crypto that will make them nervous? That will, sort of step on their toes. So one example is stablecoin. Why did Congress publish like a long, paper about stablecoin? It's because it used to be the USD. That's the format of transaction for like almost everything internationally. But then if you're going to create a stable coin that's large enough that kind of shake the status of USD in the global trade, then that's a problem that the government needs to think about, especially given today, right? Like if you think about it, it's possible that one day the world divides in half, and then like Russia and China is on one side, USD is on another side. Then there will be another type of or medium of exchange that the other have used. It's possible that it could be crypto. And this is something, that the US government will be worried about. So that's why stablecoin becomes a vocal point. So this is just a very specific example of when you do crypto, try to think about, will this be something that the government specifically care about? So that's why you realize, well, NFT probably isn't something that's too sensitive, because after all, it's like a collection item. It's a bit like a piece of painting. But if you're going to do anything real asset on chain, immediately this becomes a security, because real asset is something that generates return, brings expectation of return to the investors. Then, Robinland, for example, is something that is doing things that are super sensitive, right? We're trying to bring real estate on chain specifically with steady income. Then we need to do things carefully, like all the T's are crossed, I's are dotted. Security tokens, for example, is a method that the SEC allows to issue on-chain crypto tokens that are native to the crypto world, but also legally represents the underlying piece of real asset. And that's the reason why we choose it to do it this way, is because it's an area specifically sensitive to regulators. I'm going to pause there and then hand it over to other speakers who know much more than I do.
I can continue. Thank you, Scarlett. I have consulted a few government bodies across the world about the crypto legislation, and we can generalize it to be short that the most adequate ones regulating crypto not just based on the true economic sense. So, for instance, if the deal between persons or businesses is dedicated to passing the property ownership from one to another, that's a that should be legislated as a common deal with property ownership without crypto. So crypto is just a type of interface between the people. They can exchange paperwork, they can exchange fiat money, and they can exchange crypto assets. But if the underlying economic sense is, for instance, I'm buying a chair or I'm buying a house, I'm just buying a property and that's it. Or if, for example, like Scarlett just said, someone is selling a security, so the something that is going to provide some passive income, that should be regulated as a security, and so on and so forth. So the majority of the countries that have set up a crypto legislation are generally following these rules. And this is kind of simple way. So crypto is just another medium of exchange and another medium of writing the deals that have done, not on paper, but in crypto, in a blockchain. So generalization, but to be very quick.
That's super interesting. And what I'm noticing is that more and more people in Web3 are getting educated and learning the real power behind cryptos. But my real question is, what's your overall sentiment of different governments worldwide? Because we know that not all governments are supporting crypto the same way. And once again, please, if you want to speak, raise your hand. There is an emoji that is hands raised. This helps everyone to keep the space organized. Thank you.
If possible, I would like to add some points to what George and Scarlett had been saying, and probably that would answer Vito's questions a little bit more because I am traveling back and forth in Asia and in the United States, so I can see a lot of things going on in different governmental entities regarding cryptocurrencies. So what I've been seeing is that the common thing that the government feared is the decentralization part, and obviously they are also quite nervous about losing control of tracking where the money goes. So anti-money laundering is always a big topic among the governments, and they're trying their best to keep track on it. And so to speak, another point that the government in Asia mostly sensitive about is when it comes to investments, when it comes to tax, they would be very sensitive about that. So that's why I believe I'm currently in Taiwan, and the Taiwanese government have a lot of restrictions regarding cryptocurrencies and related investments, so that they can know who's investing, know how much money they're making, and then to make sure that they're getting the tax they are getting right now. And same regulations, similar but a little bit loosened up than Taiwan. U.S. is also doing it now. So the IRS also said that if you're buying or trading cryptocurrencies, you have to pay your taxes. And I think that's probably gonna the government's gonna grab on those points for a very long period of time because they are here to lose control and to lose money. And also another part is for the anti-money laundering thing. A lot of people are using the NFTs right now in Asia to try to launder their money into other currencies, which to my understanding, I think China and Taiwan are facing the similar issues right now. So that also makes the government very sensitive.
Yeah, totally agreed. So it's really interesting to watch because China used to be a place where crypto is really, really big. Like at some point in the past, 70% of the mining power is in China. Like if you go to like some of the provinces in the West, there are huge amount of land that's taken up as facilities to mine Bitcoin, but then all of a sudden everything is outlawed, and then the power sort of center of crypto is shifting because of regulations. Like because of China banning crypto, a lot of these activities are going to Southeast Asia, for example, because after you leave China, probably wouldn't go across the world, will go to somewhere close. So like Hong Kong, Singapore, Taiwan, Thailand, Korea are a lot of places that are now you can see booming up activity in crypto. And US is an interesting case because it's definitely at the forefront of crypto. Like a lot of the biggest posts were born here, but regulators are now also tightening its grid up on different aspects. As Fred mentioned, what they care about is, for example, capital control. They wouldn't want capital to leave their own country. That's one thing. Anti-money laundering, of course, one thing. That's almost obvious. That's what government will care about. Tax is another thing. Tax has historically been a big problem for the U.S. because in the U.S. there's a lot of private business activities. People become rich and they will try to evade taxes by all kinds of methods, and crypto just made it much easier. So in the foreseeable future, I'm sure that there will be some kind of guideline regarding that coming out to make it harder for people to evade taxes, in crypto. So that will mean maybe at some point, US wouldn't be the pure center of crypto anymore, and things are shifting out. And you already see different sentiments in governments. It's always the case that when some sets of government is trying to regulate something, there will be other sets that are embracing it to attract the activity. Like Singapore, for example, is trying to make itself the center of crypto in Asia, because if you can become that, it's huge. Like all of the kind of companies or projects or protocols will try to move their foot there. And South Korea is another really good example, as we were actually just talking with George about. I'll hand it over to George to talk more about this aspect.
Yeah, thanks, Scarlett and Fred. And to add up a little bit,
I think internet went down. I hope it's not the space. Can you all hear me?
I can hear Vito.
Loud and clear.
hello, hello?
Amazing. George, are you back? Here we go.
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah, for sure. So when I was engaging government officials across the world in crypto legislation, the main motto was like, look, guys, it will make your life easier. Because in crypto, you can watch and track all the transactions back and forth, and you can easily connect the dots and track who has to pay taxes or who is the real beneficiary of the money, etc., etc. So, as far as I know, more than a half of the Bitcoin and Ethereum addresses already mapped to the legal entities or governments or physical persons. So crypto basically makes government work easier in terms of taxes and anti-money laundering and whatever the stuff is. So yeah, and so that's why I think they should embrace regulation. And for the end users, I think crypto will make KYC AML procedures much easier, because if you submit your address or you pay from a particular address, it should be already mapped and labeled as a sanctioned address or white and clear address or whatever type of KYC, AML policy level, and you will not have to pass all this ugly user experience with KYC. You will just move smoothly.
All right, thank you for that. That was super interesting. So the question is, I can't actually go full anon and be paid in crypto, avoiding 100% of taxes, right?
It's temporary available. That's how I will answer.
Yeah, this
Yep,
is
you
something.
can. Scarlett, go first.
Yeah, that's why, folks, it's very important for you to raise your hand before speaking, because otherwise it's such a mess to, handle different turns. Thank you for that, Fred.
Yep, thanks, Fred. I was gonna say that that's the area that we can talk about the least, because the official answer is you should ask your CPA because tax-related regulations is a whole nother area that's actually separate from legal. But it's true that nowadays there are a lot of developers that are full anon, and then the funny thing is, it's possible for a team that's working on a protocol to have never met each other and do not know each other's actual identity and have completed a project, and all the transactions are done sort of on chain, which is a very interesting phenomenon to watch. Like, put the sort of tax aspect apart, I actually thought this is a innovation in terms of evolution of tech, because being in Silicon Valley, one of my pain points is to get good engineers. And in the past, it's very location based, and in Silicon Valley, engineers are just really, really expensive. But now, if I can essentially hire someone like anywhere in the world, not even having to know who they are, I think this just opens up a whole bunch of opportunity for collaboration. So that's a very interesting aspect of what I found in crypto projects. And I'll hand it over to Fred.
Yep. Just to add some points after George's statements, and that's true that currently there's still some well, I wouldn't say loopholes, but still some windows that you can look at. Some countries that allowed you to trade cryptocurrencies anonymously. But still, I think the trend would be, because, like George said, the cryptocurrency can actually help the governments to trace who's the ultimate beneficiary. They can do it. It would be simpler for them to get on hold of anti-money laundering or KYCs. So the trend would be moving forward that more and more governments is gonna ban the ability for people to hide behind any fictional image, just to have to reveal themselves as beneficiary. And to that point, it's almost impossible to just not pay your tax and do anything anonymously. Yeah.
100%. And talking about Anon and not paying taxes and DAOs, actually, or protocols, what are DAOs from a legislative point of view? So do I need to register my own company? Can I go create a DAO without registering anything, paying all of my developers, engineers, community managers, and people working on my protocol using cryptos, avoiding 100%, again, 100% of taxes? And if so, how does it work? Scarlett, you raise your hand. The floor is yours.
Yes, here's a funny thing. Technically speaking, DAO is not a legal entity, because legal entities are things that you can define and are defined by the government. For example, an LLC or a C corp or S corp, so on and so forth. But DAO is something that just a concept that started on its own. But so far, DAO, the concept, is not directly mapped to any quote unquote legal entity that most governments have recognized. So technically speaking, you can operate a DAO without registering it, because no one is really asking you to do that. At some level, it's just a group of people doing certain actions across the world and chatting with each other on a forum. And for example, in the past, in our interaction with some major DAOs in the world, when we asked them, that's also what they said. And that's also a challenge for them to engage in activities that has to do with the real world, because most of the time things are governed in the real world by contracts, and then it has to be either two people or two entities signing this legal paper. But if I'm doing business with a DAO and they're a group of people without an entity, who do I sign it with? A person or all of those people on the legal paper? So that's a challenge. And the interesting thing is, we're seeing evolution in the legal framework to sort of embrace that. For example, Wyoming is a place that now has published guidelines on how you can register your DAO as an LLC, which is called a DAO LLC. And then if you go to the website, there's literally a 2-pager that walks you sort of step by step of how to do this. So this is some just really interesting innovation of certain local governments trying to be the first in making something legally possible, like putting together guidelines for you to do it in order to attract activities into those places. So I'm going to leave it there and then let the rest speak.
George, I think raise your hand first. The floor is yours.
Thank you. So I think DAOs are like transnational corporations. So if they would like to legally operate in some country on a regular way, not on like single deals, they have to register some type of legal entity in that specific country to operate there. Otherwise, it will be not easy for them to communicate with the local persons or legal entities because of the reason that Scarlett just described, because the people would not be able to sign a contract. And that just looks like, I don't know, Nestle or British Petroleum or whatever. International corporations. They have legal entities all across the world, and that's okay. And it's looking more of like a cooperative. And as far as I know, I can share the link. There's a Colorado co-op legal framework to legalize DAOs in the U.S., which is a bit more complex than Wyoming, but I think it's more to the DAO principles. And the co-op legislation is set up in almost all countries all around the world, so it's easier to migrate and to copy and paste the legal paperwork from country to country.
Thank you, Fred.
Okay, just to add some points after Scarlett has made the general statements. Basically, yeah, I agree that the DAO is itself not a legal entity, and my reason would be if we're gonna sign a contract or like accepting an investment from a DAO, they're gonna create a new entity at the place that they're gonna invest, and then we sign the contract with that entity. So if DAO itself is a legal entity, they don't have to do that extra step. So. And I think, sort of answer to Vito's questions, I mean, DAO is a relatively new concept, and I believe a lot of government around the world are still getting themselves clear, like they don't know what actually a DAO is. So they're not bringing up legislations or regulations to restrict or just to guide how a DAO could be or should be. And that's what people always say, the legislation always follows the industry have something innovative, something disruptive, and then the government take it in and then ask the legal authorities to study it, and after we come up with a rule, and the market change. So we're always chasing the new inventions and trying to set up the general rules that's gonna apply. And DAO is definitely it contains a lot of characteristics that's like George said, it's like an international cooperation, but it also you can define it like using the current framework of any kind of legal entity that's gonna let them fit in 100%. So what we're seeing is that like Wyoming, like Colorado, they are now trying to do is they ask you to have like a DAO LLC, and then try to use the rules to guide or to govern this kind of activities. But still, the problem is like the member of DAO, they're scattered around the world, and it's not like the list of shareholder or the ledger of shareholder that you're gonna list each one of them, because in some countries they join the DAO anonymously, so you don't know who those people are. So that's a really really big problem when a government won't try to control or try to manage something like this. It's basically a forum that people can discuss, they can decide how to invest, and it's not even through like a video conference. They're just discussing everything on a forum. They vote through their tokens. Everything, every step I just mentioned are new concept, and everything need to be sorted out because related issues or potential issues are not covered by the current regulations. So it's hard to say how DAO is gonna be, but still I think the trend is that the government will come up in some ways that they can somehow control or feel more secure regarding this type of activities. Yeah.
That's actually super important, and I have a question about it. But first, again, I see a lot of people already seeing these spaces, such as Abe, Reynald, Ash, Tyrone, Mira, and so on. If you're liking what you're listening to and our speakers, share it, share this space with your friends and everyone on Twitter. That said, my question is first, if I want, so to recap what we just said, if I want to register my DAO and start, dealing with other customers and clients and companies and close partnerships, what are the steps I have to go through? George?
So, as we've already discussed, there is a legal framework of Colorado Cooperative, which is described very thoroughly in a specific article. And you just register a co-op. And it's interesting that in the co-op laws all across the world, the list of shareholders is an internal stuff. So you don't have to report it to the regulator or to, I don't know, tax authority or whatever. It's like it could be a piece of paper, and that's it. Even in the U.S. and a lot of in Russia also, and in Asian countries. So that's why at the moment nobody will care who are the shareholders. And you register a co-op, and you can sign the contracts if you need it. If you need to pay to someone in fiat money, or if someone would like to fix the terms in a contract, which will be executable and how to say, and if they can go to the court in case of any problem. So as far as I think, so for instance, you can sign a contract just putting the text of this contract into the blockchain and putting your signatures with your private keys from one part and from another. But the only thing that people are struggling with now is how to enforce the execution of the contract and not violating the contract. So, because in the fiat world, we have different levels of courts, arbitrage courts, or I don't know, criminal courts, etc. But in the crypto world, there is no court. So people don't know how to manage the conflicts. I think that's one of the issues now, and I still don't have an answer how to deal with it.
So, yeah, Fred?
Yep. So, just like Scarlett said, you can just simply Google DAO LLC Wyoming, and then you can see all the steps and requirements to forming a DAO LLC in Wyoming. And come to the point that George just brought up. A really major question now for DAO is that if everything goes smoothly, then nothing happens. But if a dispute happens and people want to go to court, they first would like to know who are they suing, who can they sue. But DAO is currently not like, if you sue a company, then the company is definitely the defendants, and the representative would be liable to just stand in the courtroom to defend, and they can hire a lawyer. But DAO, there's no representative of a DAO. It's a forum. People just discuss and vote, and then the the decisions are made. So who do we blame the faults, and how can we identify the wrongdoers? That would be a really, really major issue or task for the government trying to identify or sort their way through this new concept.
Scarlett?
I think both Fred and George mentioned a very, very interesting point, which is that in the past, the world is governed by laws, which is fundamentally about after something goes wrong, we have a way to punish people. But then smart contract or blockchain is invention of changing the way things are done is that we write it in the code in advance such that certain things just wouldn't happen. So you make breaking the quote unquote rules hard from hard to impossible. But this is all good until there's interaction between blockchain or the on-chain world and the off-chain world. So if you can make sure that all of your interactions happen on-chain, then you wouldn't need the courtroom. But then what if there's interaction with, say, real asset? And that's when something becomes really messy. So take an example of there are certain protocols or organizations that's trying to sell tokens that represent real assets. But if you didn't go through security laws to issue those, say, for example, you took a piece of real asset, you issued an NFT, and then you issue a utility token on top of the NFT, then you claim that the utility token represents a real asset, and then you're paying people their interest or rental, and it's all good until one day, say, the underlying asset collapse and the interests are not paid. Then the people will say, I want to go to court and sue you. But then the judge will say, well, in the first place, there is nothing that's linking the utility token with the NFT and with the real asset in the first place. So I can't even say that you own a piece of the real asset at all. And that's when things get really messy, which is why even though issuing the tokens through the security token law is a pain in the neck, we're still doing it this way. It's precisely to govern against when things go wrong, not a normal time. So that's just one thing that I wanted to add.
All right. Of course, I wasn't able to speak because my button wasn't working. Oh, thank you for that, though. What we just said is, what's your view of the future of crypto from a legislative point of view? Will it be regulated? If so, to which extent? And also, what are the most crypto-friendly countries today? Scarlett, the floor is yours.
I think this is a super interesting point because as a practitioner, you will see that there's convergence between regulators and the practitioners. Crypto or blockchain is something that just sort of came out of thin air. And then there's a group of people starting to do things where which are the kind of things that regulators have no idea about even how to define. Like, what is a cryptocurrency? Like, what is an NFT? What is a DAO? It just didn't exist. The interesting thing is now crypto in general is so large that it's systematically important. What I mean by systematically important is if you look at the US M2 in circulation, it's 20 trillion, but crypto market cap is 3 trillion. That's like a huge part of nowadays economic activity already. So if you just ban everything, well, what's going to suffer is the real economy because there are already linkages, as we've talked about so many times, like DAO, for example, or like, real asset on chain. So you just couldn't one day stop all the activities. And the only thing you can do as regulators is try to think of ways to allow certain aspect of it in a legal fashion, or trying to identify parts of it that's most risky, like, for example, anti-money laundering or tax evasion, and then try to pinpoint those. So that's why I wouldn't think that regulators is going to ban the activities once and for all, but rather there will be a case where we'll reach an equilibrium where the practitioners sit down with the regulators on equal footing, level playing field, face to face, talking about how are we going to do this, how can we essentially each take a step back and then reach a equilibrium. So that's what I think.
That's super interesting. And what if I want to move to like a country that is actually crypto friendly and allows me, to do my crypto businesses, let's say in peace, or if not in peace, in a way that is clear to be understood? What are the best countries? Yeah, George, the floor is yours.
The best country with the clear crypto rules is Switzerland and maybe Latvia and Estonia. So mostly European ones, because the continental European law is different from the UK and US type of law, because UK and US are using the precedential law. So, for instance, if something hasn't happened and hasn't been covered by law, it just discussed in a court. and that's it. But in the continental European law, people are trying to first shape the legislation, and then people will follow it. It's much more clear. But Switzerland is extremely expensive. So when I was getting my legal opinions regarding some token sales, the Switzerland lawyers were the most expensive in the world. So it's expensive, but it's absolutely clear and has the lowest taxes. And also Latvia and Estonia, much cheaper, but they sometimes they treat cryptocurrencies, some types of cryptocurrencies, as a property, so there will be much more taxes there. But if you want to lower down the taxes and you don't, don't afraid to spend a lot of money on lawyers, Switzerland is your choice in terms of clear framework.
All right, not sure. Yeah, Fred was raising his hand. Go for it.
Well, I cannot tell you which country is the best that you can enjoy freely dealing with cryptocurrency. But I have to say the other issue, probably the issue is not only which country you should be in when you're trying to deal with cryptocurrency. It's also who are you going to deal the cryptocurrency with, and that person's country would also matters. We can see that if you're trying to generate token or cryptocurrencies and your opponent is in the US, the US security regulation is going to grab you. So it makes generally no difference if you're in a very safe country that's going to allow you to deal with cryptocurrencies. But if the person that you're dealing with are a US citizen or live in the US, then you'll still be restricted or regulated by the US regulations. So when seeing these questions, you have to see it from both sides. Where should you be and who your opponents are? So, and that's sort of making things more complicated because there are a lot of restricted countries around the world. So now you can see when people are doing the token generation events, they are trying to carve out those countries that they are making sure that the investors or the participant are not within or citizens of those restricted countries, just to try to evade from those restrictions and regulations.
George?
Yeah, I totally agree with Fred that you have to consider both regulations from the buyer and the seller side, and that's why more and more crypto guys are flocking into the utility token space. So they will not be covered by the securities law, both in the U.S. and Europe or whatever in Asia. So the most interesting is how to structure your product in crypto to avoid security law and to be 100% utility token. So that's why it will be just like a, I don't know, intellectual property or bonus point from the like air miles. For instance, air miles are not taxed and they are not securities. So that's why you can structure your product as an air miles to avoid all this stuff. So it's kind of fuzzy, but there are some folks about it.
Amazing. Thank you for that. I'm actually flooded with personal messages asking for questions. Again, if you want to jump on stage and want to ask a question personally to our speakers, just do it. Just request to speak. If not, just write me a message or write a comment under the space post we did under on Web for You. But the most popular question I'm receiving is actually there are two questions. The first one is what are the best resources to learn about crypto and legalities in blockchain? So let's say I'm a newbie, I'm just joining the Web3 space, I want to create my own DAO. What are the platforms, websites, newspapers, or whatever I should rely on? George?
For We have a legal in Web3 subdivision of the website, and there's a first article like 101 for legal in crypto, and you can join it and read it for free. And there will be more articles down the road, and there will be also totally free.
Scarlett, I think you raised your hand. And I also
Believe,
think that Twitter is having big issues with the space.
believe it or not, for a lot of the things that I'm talking about today, I just Googled it yesterday online, and I sound like, someone that knows what she's talking about. So nowadays, because legality in crypto is a huge space, this is making a lot of lawyers, such as Fred, very rich, because crypto projects usually have a huge amount of inflow of money, and they're okay with paying, lawyers a huge amount. So as a result, there's a lot of law firms that are now publishing blogs or articles on their website to talk about, say for example, what is a security token, what is a utility token, what is a DAO, what is an NFT, things like that, to provide public good in order to attract people to use their law firm. So nowadays, you can actually get a lot of these resources online just by Googling and looking at these blogs published by certain law firms. And also, you can just reach out and schedule a 30-minute free call with a lot of these, because before you sign an engagement letter with a law firm, they usually are okay with providing you with a free consultation for half an hour. So this is a way for you to educate yourself and also to try to screen which law firm you want to partner with. Even though there's not so much regulations in crypto yet, based on what I learned, there's a lot of famous protocols that before they even started, they actually have hired a lawyer or a pretty reputable law firm to help them with structuring their legal entities, the whole process, how to avoid security loss and things like that. So if you're really serious and you want your product to be really big, then maybe seeking legal advice in advance is a good idea. Because at one time I heard someone say, the SEC is a hammer and you do not want to be the tallest nail, right? So like things are all good until you get really big. So if you really do want to become the top few in your area, then maybe set things up in a careful way in advance is a good idea.
Fred?
Okay, first I have to thank Scarlett to teaching people how to utilize the free consultation of a law firm, which is something we try to hide, but still, yeah, that's a really good resource that one can use. And then, yes, as George said, Web3 University is definitely a place that you can look. And then there's a lot of articles and informations that can get you to the base, not only the basic, but also some in-depth point of view regarding cryptocurrencies. And I would have to say, just Google it and see those articles that's published by the law firms, because when lawyers are writing their articles, they are much more informed regarding regulation informations, because they have to look everything up and make sure they know what they're talking about. There's actually ethical rules regarding those. So definitely look at those articles published by the law firms, especially those who specialize in cryptocurrencies. And also the governmental websites are a good place to look, even though for most of the topics, they don't have like an official guideline or rules that's gonna make a really clear path for you to follow, but they do issue like opinions or guidance, or maybe their conference they will sum it up, and then those informations would give you a thoughts regarding how the legislation, how the legal authorities are moving toward, and you will get yourself prepared once they officially formalize any bill or laws that's going to govern this field. Yeah.
And to add on top of what George and Fred and Scarlett said, we're actively collaborating with George to bring the best Web3 resources about legalities in Web3 with a fully fledged series to bring you from zero to hero on everything there is to know about how cryptos are regulated around the world. So if you're interested to dig deeper into the topic, I'm sure you'll find so much value from these articles. And once again, thank you, George, for your job, and thank you, Fred and Scarlett, for your words. Another very common question I'm receiving in my messages at the moment is what are the most interesting protocols and DAOs to date? So, you, as experts of regulations, legalities in Web3, and of course, protocols and DAO, what are the groups that you're keeping an eye on? Scarlett?
I personally think the intersection between Web 2 and Web 3 in general is a very interesting case. This is because when you look at DeFi, there had been a DeFi summer in 2020. And then very soon people realize the problem is it's a closed ecosystem. So when you talk about borrowing and lending, first thing is, well, there needs to be collateral that we are borrowing and lending on top of. But then if it's all crypto tokens, if you just look at the price chart of crypto, there is no orthogonal volatility. It's been simply just one thing that co-moves with each other. So then if you're trying to build an financial ecosystem on top of that, it simply is going to collapse in itself very quickly afterwards. So that's why I think in general, bringing real assets into DeFi or allowing DeFi liquidity to finance real aspect assets is very interesting. So anything related to that intersection is something that I'm following personally, which is also why I'm doing Robinland myself. That's one of the players, and among those, I would say real estate, like it or not, is one of the most advanced in bringing itself on chain. Partly because it's very stable, partly because it's very standardized and easy to price. So, for example, there are a lot of similar protocols or competitors of ours that you can all follow. So other than Robinland, there's Lofty, there's Centrifuge, there's Goldfinch, there's Citadel, there's Realty. So those are all a few very interesting cases to look at on this specific vertical.
Thank you, Scarlett. Once again, if you have questions that you want to ask to our speakers and want to jump on stage, just press and request to speak and we'll accept you. If not, I just leave like the next 2 minutes for you all to think about the questions and to jump on stage. In the meantime, I will ask Scarlett to talk us a little bit more about Robinland and what Robinland is doing in the landscape of Web3 and cryptos and collateralization of assets.
Thanks so much for allowing me to speak about Robinland specifically. So what we're trying to do is to use blockchain technology to solve financing and investment problems in real estate. And the reason why there's problem is because if you think about it, the real estate industry in the US is extremely segregated. So there are about 20 to 30% of really large developers that just don't need financing. They have centuries or decades of relationship with certain banks because they are certain ethnicity, which I wouldn't name, but it just made it such that they even wouldn't need to ask for, but there are banks just trying to put money in them. But then there are also 70 to 80% of smaller guys. These are just, maybe a family that's trying to make a living and they build about 10 homes every year. And it's very hard for them to find financing, even if the projects are just as good and just as solid and they can sell the product with no problem. And this is the area that we're trying to help. We do not like the fact that there's this imbalance between bigger players and smaller players. This is one aspect of what we're trying to do, trying to solve the financing problem. And then there's the investment problem, and it's a very similar idea. If you look at returns, the kind of return on private assets are just different from those of public assets. Like if you're a retail investor who is not connected, you're just trying to buy something, from an exchange. It's just going to be inferior, like it or not, than the kind of assets that big players like pension funds or institutions or PEs can get. So there's a lot of very good quality assets that are locked by large institutions, and this is wrong, at least to me. This should not be the case. But if you use tokenization, then this is a tool that's going to turn large piece asset into smaller piece and allow people who previously wouldn't be able to get those assets to be able to trade it and derive those returns that previously were only accessible by large institutions. And this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to bring really high quality commercial real estate debt with very good passive return, say 8 to 10%, to the masses through tokenization. And in this process, because we're channeling liquidity from DeFi, this also solves the financing problem of those smaller players in this playing field. So that's basically using the advantage of real estate to solve the DeFi problem and vice versa. So that's what we are trying to build, and we really want to see that you're part of this journey. So this year in June, we're going to launch our product for the first time. So please follow us on our Discord or Telegram or Twitter to track our progress. And we really want you to be one of the first batch of investors in our tokenized real estate product.
Thank you, Scarlett. I'm a huge fan of Robinland. So do what Scarlett said. Follow them and see the things they're building because it's amazing. That said, FNS ATM just requested to speak. So welcome on stage.
Yeah, how you guys doing? I'm really glad you brought me on space. You guys been really preaching like some good knowledge up here as far as like the legalities of crypto. And I had a question regarding like from a creator perspective. So I make like blog posts and stuff informing people about crypto. And also on my blog post, I also offer like one-on-one coaching and stuff like that as far as like onboarding, like whether it's like companies or like individuals into crypto, like such as like DeFi markets and NFTs and stuff along that line. So I was wondering for like when I'm making my blog posts as far as like providing free articles regarding information, do I have to like explain that it's like not financial advice, like put it somewhere like as far as like in my writing or like legally so I'm not like liable or like sued or anything like that? And for like the coaching services and stuff like that, would it just be smarter to make like a LLC and run it as like a business rather than just I don't know like them just paying me in crypto or whatever?
I leave this question open to our speakers. Go, George.
I used to practice a very simple rule. So if you're not building a, I don't know, regular large business out of it, you can just get in crypto. But if you're going to constantly grow and it, so you will have to legalize it somehow. And the tax agencies in all of the countries are thinking quite the same. So, for instance, in the U.S., small businesses don't have to even report a detailed like financial report to the tax agency, unlike a lot of other countries. And in most of the countries, government just don't care about the small businesses. They know what's going on there. So you can just connect. You can just stay in crypto if you're keeping it small.
Yeah, follow up on FNS.
Yeah, okay. I see. I kind of see what you're saying. Like, this is like a small business. I could kind of treat it like almost like a freelancing type thing and take my taxes like that. But I also had one last question for I think it was Scarlett or whoever was running the real estate. Is it like the real estate tokenization? So is it something like almost like you're creating like almost like REITs and then you're collateralizing that with real estate assets or something like along the lines of that?
Sure, Scarlett.
Yeah, so it's in sort of in spirit very similar. The only difference is with REITs, there is a certain set of very specific regulations, while we're actually doing it through Reg D, which is a certain exemption that the SEC allows in order for us to issue on-chain crypto tokens that legally pegs to pieces of real estate. And also, tokens is very different from shares in a REIT in the sense that shares in a REIT is something very private. It's fundamentally held in a central way by the REIT themselves. But then a token is something that you hold in your wallet, and the smart contract guarantees the payment of interest according to schedule every period into your wallet. So this is something that only blockchain technology allow us to do, which doesn't exist before. So we are able to essentially channel passive income from assets that are previously very large very large in size and not accessible by retail investors. Now through blockchain, people around the world can access. So this is in spirit how it's different from the traditional way of how we're doing it.
Thank you, Scarlett. And thank you, FNS ATM, for the amazing questions. I think Cartago is next. We're going to take another 3 questions on stage and then close and wrap up this amazing space. Cartago, the floor is yours.
Great, guys. Thank you. Probably my handle gives out the nature of my question, but I own some ENS domains. I was trying to understand if the panel has any experience with that and see what is the legal environment around, big brands wanting their domains and potentially, putting some legal battles. Yeah, that's my question.
So, if I understood correctly, you're asking what are the implications for a big brand to buy like an ENS domain and start doing crypto business?
Well, not buying per se, but if I own something, because I believe in the 90s, the DNS crowd managed to scoop a lot of the names and then squawk those names and sell it. But then at some point, there was some legal challenges. I'm thinking, and with ENS being decentralized, probably I don't know if there's any recourse really.
That's actually a great question. Go, George. We can't hear you at the moment.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Here we go. Yeah, loud and clear.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, so if you're talking about the cyber squatting of ENS domains, there's no issues. You can buy a domain like Coca-Cola dot whatever, and Coca-Cola will not be able to sue against you because you have just bought it and you own it, and that's it. They can just buy it from you. That's the only way how to solve it if they want to take this domain. So I think if I haven't understood your question right, please rephrase it.
No, that lawyers were sending some cease and desist letters talking about branding and copyright, those kinds of things. I'm not sure if that's true.
I think it's nonsense because you can book any type of domain in any centralized, but basically DNS is not centralized, but that's a whole lot of things to talk about. But nevertheless, you can buy any type of domain related with any existing brand, and you will be the owner of that domain. And if the brand owner would like to have this domain, it just has to buy it from the current owner, I think from you, for example.
Oh my God. I love the idea of lawyers sending cease and desist letters to ENS domain holders. This is the 2022 cutting edge battles that I'm so happy to be alive in this time. Anyway, thank you for your question, Cartago. It was super interesting. Now we have Lance on stage. Artist, NFT explorer. Hey Lance, welcome on
Hello.
stage.
Hello, thank you for having me. I just got into this space and I'm not sure what was discussed before that, but I will definitely catch the recording because it sounds super interesting. So I have a question regarding holding cryptocurrency in places that are actually not legal. So let me draw an illustration for you. So for example, if I am someone living in, say, Singapore right now, where cryptocurrency is legal, when I go back to my home country where cryptocurrency is not legal, what are the implications there, and what are some of the ways that I can actually work around it? It's a bit of a gray area, and it's something that I've been trying to figure out for a long time. Yeah. So appreciate anyone with any experience, if you could share that with me. Thank you.
George?
As far as I know, and I also practice it as a physical person, and my friends also, and our lawyers don't have any questions regarding it. So, if you don't want to cash out your crypto to fiat in the country which has no crypto legislation or which has banned crypto, it's okay. So if you just own some wallet and this wallet is anonymous and you are using this cryptocurrency outside of your homeland country, they just don't have any, how to say, criminal court material. So they will not be able to sue you or do whatever with you if you don't pay. So, for instance, what will be the source of issues for you in your home country is, for example, if you would like to pay with crypto for some goods or services inside this country, or if you would like to change cryptocurrency for the fiat, for the local fiat country inside your country, that will raise an issue against you. But if you do this offshore, that is totally okay.
I see. In that case, would they, as long as I don't use it in my home country, it will be okay? And another question is how sure is it that they won't be able to trace back to me? Say if I am partially doxxed, for example.
If you haven't passed the KYC with that address, and if you just created a new address, there's no way for them to control it. But nevertheless, once again, if the law of the country is not exterritorial, it is working only inside this country. And if you're doing your crypto deals offshore, there is no way to issue any penalties in your homeland. They don't have a legal aspect. I don't know how to explain it.
I see. Okay, I get what you mean. Do you happen to have any like resources that I can read up on as well? If you'll be so kind to direct me to them. Thank you.
All right, I think, George, can you send Lance resources like directly, or send me the resources and I can pin those to the space? We're gonna have another couple of people on stage to ask questions to our speakers and then wrap up the space. So we have Gonzala. I hope I spelled your name correctly. Welcome on stage.
Hi, it's Ghazala. Thank you so much. So my question is, what are the different factors that governments take into consideration while imposing a percent of tax on cryptos, and how do they decide a percent?
So, Fred or Scarlett, do you have opinions or answers?
We'll leave it to the lawyer to answer.
Oh wow, Fred, she's calling you out.
Well, I'm
Go.
still trying to understand the question. So can you sort of like elaborate, explain in more detail what exactly are you looking for with the answers?
Okay, so while we were talking about taxes, we mentioned that some countries have taxes imposed on cryptos, right? So how do the government decide, sorry, uh, on a percent of tax that should be imposed.
So, do you mean
Like 2%.
how do the government decide like how much tax to impose, or how do the government
Yeah.
find out who's gonna pay for the tax? Because
No, no.
that's two
How
different
do they?
issues.
Yeah. So my question was the first one. How does the government decide how much tax should be imposed to anyone who owns cryptos in general? Yeah.
Well, this question actually, the answer is actually it depends. Depends on the countries you're at. Depends on the tax authorities that's making those rules. So some countries they define cryptocurrency as investments. So they will use probably the tax brackets for investments, and then they'll find the most similar factual backgrounds and then just use the regulations regarding that situation to impose the tax on you. So like for some governments, as I mentioned, they defined it as investments, so they will use probably the profits of investing securities and then to define the tax. Some countries now, I believe, they already have like for cryptocurrency specific tax brackets, and then you can look it up and then to see how much you will be owed to pay for the taxes. And still some governments that I know, they define like NFTs, they are not investments, but they are maybe goods or products. They define it as that. So then different tax rules would apply. So definitely look it up with the tax regulators in your region or your country, and then to see which one would apply. That would be my answer.
All right. Thank you so much, Fred.
Amazing, great question, and thank you so much for jumping on stage, Gazala. I think the next one is Non-Fungible Bros, NFB. Welcome on stage. Non-Fungible Bros, still there? All right, I'm gonna call Muhammad Wajid on stage. Well, I think Twitter again is back. All right, welcome Muhammad on stage. Glad to have you here. Can you hear us? We can't hear you,
Can you hear
but I
me?
guess you'll try to speak. Yes, welcome.
Yeah. So my question is an expansion of the last question that one of our co-speaker asked. That how the government, knows that how much crypto I own, and so because the governments are, imposing taxes on cryptos. I mean, how do they know that how much crypto I own?
So, can I add on this question? And is does the government knows how many cryptos you own?
Because
So, George, the next one. George, your hand is up.
Okay. So I think there's a third time in a row that we are having the same question. I think that's a pain point for the community. So once again, the current level of automatization of tax agencies and Ministry of Finance or whatever is so poor that they will not be able to track all the ownership rights of their citizens, especially offshore, especially in crypto. And usually, even when, let's say, you will have to wait until your central bank or your tax agency will issue some specific report, like this particular holdings of yours should be taxed like this and that, and you don't have to describe what do you have, especially if it's offshore. If you earned your cryptocurrency in another country, It should be treated like your external holdings in the different country, and it doesn't belongs to the country of your passport. So if you don't report it, it's 99% that they will not know what's going on if you don't have to pay, if you haven't passed the KYC with that particular wallet, and if there is no specific detailed letter from your government authority describing um, how to track it and how to report it, you just don't care. That's how I do. That's how a lot of people do. But I know that the true lawyers will say consult your CPA, consult your attorney, etc., etc. But yeah, once again, if you're a tiny, if you're just a common guy, if you're not working with billions of dollars, no one cares.
Fred?
Yep, just like Georgia said, most of the government or the tax agency now they rely on we so-called the honor code that you have to report your tax. They're not gonna look into and every individual to just audit or check what the income resource is because that's just too much work to do. But do be aware that if you decide to cash out cryptocurrency and that's in a huge amount, and you decide to remit that from your offshore account into your country, then it would certainly raise questions for the bank and the tax agencies. They're going to ask, like, where is the fund coming from? And you have to declare the resource. At that stage, probably you will face some problems from the tax agencies. But other, except for those situations, just like George said, until you get the like a paper or a letter from your tax authorities, you're probably safe for that. And again, that's not a tax advice. I'm not a CPA, so still consult your CPAs. Yeah.
100%. Let's make this very, very clear. No financial advice here. Make your own decision. Consult your own CPA. Don't start, going full on and stop paying taxes just because you listened to this space and you understood you could actually do it. Seriously, every country is very, very different. You don't want to incur a huge shoe or, issues with the law. So consult your CPA. Lance, do you
Thank
have
you.
another
Thank you
question?
very much.
My pleasure. Thank
Yes,
you
I
so much.
do. It's me again. Hello. Yeah, so I actually have a. Do you have speakers waiting to come up to speak?
Sorry?
Vito, do you have speakers waiting to come up to speak? Because I actually have questions for Gazala and Wajid actually. Would I be able to ask them here?
Absolutely, absolutely. We're gonna wrap this space after your questions, so go for it.
Okay, thank you so much. So, Ghazala and Wajid, I understand that you both are from India and Pakistan. So, my question to the both of you is, from my understanding, India and Pakistan, and also as well Bangladesh, these are countries that have a hot and cold relationship with like cryptocurrency. I think for the Bangladeshi government, they are very into blockchain. They are looking into it, but they actually ban cryptocurrency. So in this case, like what is the climate in India and Pakistan, and how do people actually like deal with this, especially with Pakistan having like toying with the idea of banning crypto? Yeah, so I would love to hear your thoughts because I've been trying to reach out to people from the South Asia region, but I haven't been getting a lot of luck with that. So glad to meet you guys here. Yeah. So maybe we can start with Ghazala first if you're still here.
Hi. Yeah, so actually I'm new into this space, but I have been reading about this a lot recently. So though government has said that they are going to impose taxes and they have mentioned a percent of 30 on that. So, so yeah, I'm not really sure. We actually have to do our own research on this. But yeah, there are many projects coming up from India. Although there are tax implications which are mentioned by the government, but there is nothing as such that I hear that crypto would be banned completely in India. because we have seen Polygon coming up, and many new startups and projects are coming up in blockchain space. So as per the experts from India, they say that it's not that crypto would be completely banned in India, because there is such a huge market and so many investors have come up in last year, that it is just very difficult to completely ban it as they did some years back. So yeah, that's my view, and that's what I understand from the research.
I see. Thank you so much, Gonzala. That means there won't be like there's no how should I put it? There isn't a climate of fear of holding crypto. Would that be right in India?
Yeah, so if we talk about holding the crypto, it actually depends upon the investor first of all. But the people who really believe in this technology, and who are constantly staying updated with this, and who really wants to get involved, they just hold it and they get involved in the projects. So yeah, it is a good thing to be in this year and in future.
I see. Thank you so much, Ghazala. What about Wajid? What is the climate like in Pakistan?
Yeah, thank you for asking your question. So in Pakistan, the crypto got banned because we don't have any tax implications by the government, and so the government is actually trying to impose taxes on cryptocurrencies. So while they are making laws on their end, they have banned the crypto so that they can make laws about that. And I hope so that there will be crypto unbanned very soon, while they will have the laws. And if I will talk about the development of the cryptocurrencies, yeah, Pakistan is developing a lot of projects, and we are working on different kind of development projects. And if we go further into while what is the reason behind why it is banned in Pakistan, is that there are many crypto projects that has held in the past, in the recent times, that have faked Pakistani people. They raised some money, and then they ran away. So after seeing those things in the Pakistan, they banned the cryptocurrency. Yeah.
I see. So for those people who are still holding like crypto wallets, are they still holding on to it, or was there a rush to like cash it out before the ban?
They actually do cash their wallets right now. There is, if I talk about Binance B2P, so in Pakistan, a lot of people use Binance B2P to cash their income from crypto, or maybe buy the cryptos. But that is a trackable thing by the government, and at the end of the day, government can track by the P2P thing, that how much money you are spending on crypto, or how much money you are earning from crypto. And in the further things, they will be adding taxes to that.
I see. Thank you so much. I have followed the both of you, and I will connect with you offline. Thank you so much, Pito, for giving me the space to ask the question, and
Th-
thank you, George, for answering my questions as well. I will send you an email. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lance Gazala and Wajid, or Muhammad. Wajid is the surname, right?
Yes, Wajid is the surname.
Okay, thank you so much, Muhammad. It's been a pleasure talking with you today. I will leave the speakers another couple of minutes to, say bye, and then we'll wrap up this space. Scarlett.
Thanks so much for hosting this. This is amazing. I really do think that, as crypto activity develops, legality in crypto will be just increasingly a very heated topic. So really looking forward to new, spaces like this. And thanks so much for inviting Robinland to speak here, and looking forward to having, having you follow us in the future. We'll also try to bring knowledge like this that are useful for people in crypto.
Thank you for speaking today and answering all those questions. I learned a lot. Fred, George, do you want to wrap this up? Fred, the floor is yours.
Yep. I really thank Web3 University for hosting this event, and just so that we understand what people is thinking about cryptocurrencies and what their concerns are. This is really important for us since we're entering into this field that's relatively new, and then to understand what people's concern can let us make sure that when we are structuring our projects, we are able to cover all the aspects that's gonna make people comfortable and make our company success.
Thank you for speaking today. I think we had George before, and then, of course, Web4U, host and sponsor of this space.
Okay, thank you guys. I think it will be great to have another Twitter space about how to run your product as a utility token, not a security token, and how to avoid all of this mess with the regulations and make your life much easier and make easier the life of your users also. Thank you very much, guys. Wish you a good night or day or whatever time you have it.
All right, all right. Anyway, once again, this space was sponsored and hosted by Web4U and the amazing Derek Devrel at Alchemy. Web3U is the first Web3 learning platform that will help you going from zero to hero and start your career as a blockchain developer in 2022. Read our blog to read George posts about Web3 legalities and future collaboration with Robinland.io. Remember to follow us on Twitter and remember to subscribe to the Alchemy Platform YouTube channel for Web3 tutorials and much more. I want to thank once again all the speakers that spoke today in our space. It's been an amazing experience. I learned a lot. And thank you to all the people that attended us. Scarlett, of course, got dropped off by Twitter. But anyway, again, I see Maylene, I see Renzil, I see Kevin, Salva, Crunch, Michael. And I want to thank you all for attending this space. Once again, thank you and have a great day. Oh, quick reminder, the space is recorded and will be posted by Robinland.io on Spotify as a podcast. So if you want to listen to this again, or just click on listen recording on Twitter or go on Spotify, Robinland.io, and listen to the podcast. Thank you all. 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 Thank you all.